Welcome to Newsbeacon, your trusted source for breaking headlines, global insights, and sharp analysis from around the world. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. The world is holding its breath, eyes fixed on the Middle East, a region that has long been a crucible of conflict and shifting alliances. In recent months, tensions have escalated to unprecedented levels, drawing in not just regional powers but the attention of the entire international community. As the sun sets over city skylines and newsrooms buzz with urgent updates, the world watches anxiously. The Middle East stands at a crossroads, with every new development sending ripples across the globe. In June 2025, the fragile balance shattered. Israel, fearing an imminent threat, launched a series of preventive strikes against Iranian military and nuclear sites. The response from Iran was swift and fierce, igniting a dangerous cycle of retaliation that threatened to spiral out of control. Amidst this chaos, a new and unsettling narrative began to take shape. Russia, a longtime partner of Iran and a formidable global player, appeared angered by the attacks on its ally. Rumors swirled that Moscow was preparing to intervene directly against Israel, raising the specter of a much wider conflict. Headlines blared warnings of a looming showdown, while social media exploded with speculation about a new anti-Israel axis forming in the region. The idea of Russia entering the fray captured imaginations and stoked fears worldwide. The Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a sharp and public condemnation of Israel's actions, using strong language that only heightened anxieties. Many wondered if this was the prelude to a dramatic escalation, with Russia stepping onto the battlefield. But beneath the surface, the reality is far more nuanced and complex than the headlines suggest. Analysts and experts caution against taking the rhetoric at face value. Russia's harsh words are part of a calculated strategy, one that relies on opportunism and diplomatic maneuvering rather than direct military intervention. The Kremlin knows the risks of open conflict and prefers to operate in the shadows, leveraging crises to expand its influence. Moscow is playing a long and patient game. Its leaders seek to maximize their leverage in the region, gaining advantage through back-channel negotiations, arms deals and strategic alliances, all without firing a single shot at Israel. To truly understand Russia's intentions, one must look beyond the dramatic headlines and examine its subtle diplomatic maneuvers and pragmatic calculations. Russia is adept at exploiting uncertainty, turning crisis into opportunity. A direct war with Israel would be catastrophic for Russia, especially as it remains deeply entangled in the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Opening another front would stretch its resources and risk international isolation. The real story is not one of impending war, but of a powerful nation exploiting crisis to advance its own agenda, carefully and always with an eye on the bigger picture. Russia seeks to shape outcomes without direct confrontation, using every tool at its disposal. In the end, the specter of a Russian bear rampaging through the Middle East is more illusion than reality, a shadow cast by ambition, not by armies on the march. Instead of immediately mobilizing its military forces or escalating tensions on the ground, Russia has chosen a different path, one that relies on the power of negotiation and strategic communication. In recent months, Russia has leaned heavily on diplomacy, using its experienced diplomats and international connections to influence events from behind the scenes. Following the Israeli strikes, Moscow was quick to call for calm, offering itself as a neutral mediator. By stepping into this role, Russia aims to present itself as a responsible global actor, eager to prevent further escalation and promote peace. President Putin's public willingness to mediate is not just about resolving the conflict, it's a calculated move to enhance Russia's image on the world stage. By positioning himself as a peacemaker, Putin seeks to elevate Russia's status and influence in international affairs, rather than directly threatening military action. Behind closed doors, Russian diplomats have been actively encouraging Iran to come to the negotiating table. They've shown a clear preference for talks in Oman, a country known for its neutrality and trusted by all sides, hoping to create an environment where real dialogue can take place. Moscow's repeated calls for dialogue are more than just rhetoric. These are genuine efforts to prevent a broader regional war, one that could destabilize the Middle East and threaten Russia's own strategic interests, including its military presence and alliances. In a significant diplomatic move, Russia has even opened a direct channel with the United States. President Putin and former President Trump have spoken directly, discussing ways to de-escalate the conflict and find a peaceful resolution. This ongoing crisis has handed Russia a unique diplomatic opportunity. By positioning itself at the center of negotiations, Russia forces the world to engage with it on critical security issues, gaining recognition as a key player in global affairs. However, despite its efforts, Russia's actual leverage over Israel remains limited, especially in the aftermath of Assad's decline in Syria, which has reduced Moscow's influence in the region. Ultimately, Russia's true achievement lies in using the conflict to reassert itself in great power politics. While it may not be able to stop the fighting outright, it has succeeded in making itself indispensable to any future peace process. Russia and Iran's deepening relationship alarms many observers around the world, especially in the West, where policymakers worry about the implications of two sanctioned powers growing closer. Their cooperation has certainly increased in recent years, with more frequent diplomatic visits, joint statements, and public displays of unity. Yet, despite the optics, it's important to recognize that this is not a true military alliance. There are no binding commitments to come to each other's defense, and both sides are careful to avoid crossing that line. Their 2025 Strategic Partnership Agreement, while significant, notably lacks a mutual defense clause. This means that if Iran were attacked, Moscow would not be legally or politically obligated to intervene militarily on its behalf. This omission is no accident. Russia deliberately left out any promise of military support, giving itself the flexibility to pursue its own interests and avoid being drawn into Iran's regional disputes or conflicts. While Iran once supplied drones for Russia's war in Ukraine, helping Moscow fill critical gaps in its arsenal, Russia has since ramped up domestic production of these drones. This shift has reduced its reliance on Iranian technology and supply chains, making the partnership less one-sided. At the same time, Russia has been careful not to transfer its most advanced military technology to Iran. By withholding cutting-edge weapons, Moscow avoids provoking Israel or upsetting the delicate balance of power in the Middle East. Ultimately, this partnership is best understood as a marriage of convenience. Both Russia and Iran are isolated by Western sanctions, and both are eager to build alternative economic structures that can help them survive and even thrive outside the Western-dominated global system. Ambitious projects like the North-South Transit Corridor, which aims to connect Russia to the Indian Ocean via Iran, and efforts at financial integration, are the real cornerstones of their cooperation. These initiatives promise economic benefits and greater independence from Western pressure. For Russia, Iran is a valuable partner in its quest to build a multipolar world order, one where Western influence is checked by new centers of power. But even so, Moscow is not willing to risk war for Tehran. The relationship is strategic, pragmatic, and mutually beneficial, but its limits are clear and carefully maintained by both sides. Russia wants the economic and geopolitical benefits of partnership with Iran, but it has no intention of being dragged into a Middle Eastern war. The pact is about convenience, not conflict. The Israel-Iran conflict is a strategic windfall for Moscow. With the West's attention diverted, Russia faces less pressure and fewer resources directed at Ukraine. US support for Israel means less focus on Kiev, fewer weapons shipments, and a shift in priorities. Every tank or dollar sent to Israel is one less for Ukraine, giving Russia breathing room. The crisis also delays new sanctions, as Washington needs Moscow's cooperation in the Middle East. Russia benefits passively. The longer the conflict simmers, the more time it has to consolidate gains in Ukraine. The chaos opens a second front in the global competition for attention and resources, playing directly into Kremlin hands. The Israel-Iran conflict has sent global oil prices soaring, a direct boon for Russia. Higher oil prices mean billions in extra revenue, funding Russia's war in Ukraine and offsetting Western sanctions. The mere threat of wider conflict keeps markets on edge, creating a war premium on oil. Russia profits from instability without firing a shot, all while calling for peace. This economic windfall strengthens Russia's leverage with energy consumers and complicates Western efforts to isolate it. As prices rise, Russia's role as a stable supplier becomes more important. Many nations hesitate to enforce strict sanctions, fearing further energy disruption. The economic fallout from the conflict has become a powerful weapon in Russia's geopolitical arsenal. Russia and Israel's relationship has shifted from pragmatic cooperation to wary competition. For years they coordinated in Syria, avoiding direct clashes as Israel targeted Iranian assets. The fall of Assad in 2024 ended Russia's military presence in Syria and the de-confliction hotline with Israel. With less need to coordinate, the relationship has grown more adversarial. The war in Ukraine further poisoned ties, as Israel's alliance with the US puts it firmly in the Western camp. Russian elites now see Israel as part of the US-led bloc opposing Moscow. Despite cooling relations, a complete break is unlikely. Shared interests and cultural ties remain, but the era of quiet military coordination is over. Russia now acts on its own strategic interests. Syria was once the linchpin of Russia-Israel cooperation. Russia's intervention to save Assad made it the dominant power in Syria, while Israel targeted Iranian entrenchment. A de-confliction mechanism allowed both to pursue their goals without direct conflict. Assad's fall in 2024 ended this arrangement overnight. Russia drew down forces and the hotline went silent. The pragmatic partnership evaporated, freeing Russia to support Iran more openly. For Israel, the region is now more unpredictable, with Russia no longer a stabilizing force. The power vacuum left by Russia's withdrawal invites new regional actors. The end of cooperation in Syria marks a new uncertain chapter in Russia-Israel relations. The Israel-Iran conflict threatens Russia's long-term economic ambitions in the region. Moscow has invested billions in Iran's oil, gas, and infrastructure projects, now at risk from Israeli strikes. A wider war could wipe out these investments and delay key projects like the North-South Transport Corridor. Russia's hopes for a free trade zone with Iran are also jeopardized. This economic vulnerability drives Moscow's push for de-escalation. Russia wants high oil prices and Western distraction, but not a war that destroys its investments. The Kremlin walks a tightrope, profiting from tension but desperate to avoid all-out conflict. The image of a Russian bear preparing to attack Israel is misleading. Moscow's strategy is coldly pragmatic, exploiting crisis for gain, not seeking war. Russia's response is diplomatic, not military, balancing condemnation with behind-the-scenes de-escalation. Its partnership with Iran is economic and political, not a war pact. The real benefits: Western distraction from Ukraine and a surge in oil revenue. Russia profits handsomely from chaos, without direct involvement. By positioning itself as mediator and benefiting economically, Moscow cements its status as a key global player. The bear isn't on the warpath, it's playing the long game, capitalizing on chaos to secure its own victory.